Nice to be with you again today. I hope you're having a good day. Psalm 91 starts out like this: He who shelters in the secret place of the Most High God will dwell in the shadow of the Almighty. Very special word pictures. The secret place of the Most High. Where would that be? How close to God would that be? To be in the shadow of the Almighty, we can relate to that. You have to be close to the source to be in the shadow. And so I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be close to God. I think everybody wants to be close to God. Sometimes He seems so far away. Sometimes He seems closer to us. What does it mean to be close to God? Well, during these isolation days and the lockdown, we've spent a little bit of our time here at home watching reruns of the 1970s Little House on the Prairie movies. Great family stories, good morals, and certainly an insight into the way life was a lot of years ago. And one of the key players on that program is Laura Ingalls. And Laura is a young lady that's as pure and true and honest and caring as anybody you'll meet. She wants to be everybody's friend. She wants everybody to do well in life. And she doesn't want to make mistakes. And when she makes them, it really upsets her. Well, one day Laura did what she felt was a really awful thing. She couldn't talk to anybody about it except her sister, and she made her sister promise to never tell. And Laura felt like she had to talk to God to tell Him what she had done, and her big concern was to make sure that He would hear her. And so how do you know for sure that God is hearing you when you talk to Him? And I think we all ask that question at one time or another. So Laura did the obvious thing. She went down to the town, down to the chapel, and found the reverend. And she walked in and she said, "I have a question for you." And he said, "Well, what can I do for you, Laura?" And she said, "Well, how do you get close to God? How do you know when you're close enough to God that He hears what you're saying?" And so he gave her the best answer he could. He said, "Well, I think most people, when they want to make sure that God hears them, they just try to get as close to Him as they possibly can. If you get close enough to God, surely He would hear you." She smiled and thanked him and went on her way, seemed to be satisfied. Went home, didn't tell anybody. That night, after everybody had gone to bed, she wrote a note to her parents, slipped out of the house, and began a journey that she hoped would take her closer to God. Because you see, in her mind, God is up. Perhaps a lot of us think that way. And so she figured that the higher elevation that you get, the closer you'll be to God. She kind of mixed up attitude with altitude, and she thought altitude was the answer. And so she traveled a long ways, and she finally got to the highest point of a mountain that she could reach. There's higher ones on the planet. And she got down and she talked to God, and she gave to Him her proposal, told her what she felt like she needed Him to do, and then she lay down on a rock and went to sleep. And she expected when she woke up, she would be in a different place and her answer would have happened. Well, hours later she woke up and somebody had put a jacket on her to keep her warm, and that surprised her, but she was still there. So apparently God hadn't answered her. Apparently He hadn't heard her. And of course, someone shows up, and I think it's probably an angel. And for the next period of time, they have discussions about what it means to be close to God. And He, over time, explains to her that it isn't altitude. It isn't trying to get up where God is. It's understanding that God is with us, that he's close by, and that if she could tune her heart and her mind and her thoughts towards God, that he would hear her prayer, and she could know that he was listening to her. And if he didn't answer exactly the way she wanted him to, that's okay, because he doesn't always give us what we want. Well, it's a beautiful story. And meanwhile, her dad and his friend are out panicked, looking day and night to try to find her. And of course, some typical, almost supernatural ways, they finally find her and they reunite. And the story has a very happy ending. And she goes home, and it's a good learning experience for the whole family. As I watched that program that's been around for a lot of years, and watched that young girl with such a sincere heart want so much to be close to God, but had a physical concept of it, not a spiritual one. She thought she had to somehow go closer to God in order for him to come closer to her. And what she needed to realize, and what we all want to realize, is that we invite God into our life in the person of Jesus. He's as close to us as he could ever be. He dwells within us. And where we go, he goes. It's a good reminder to make sure we take him to all the right places and not the wrong ones. And it's a beautiful lesson, I think, for all of us to remember. So the person who dwells in the secret place of God is dwelling in the presence of God. And we're dwelling as close to God as we could possibly be. And obviously in that place we enjoy the benefit of being in the shadow of the Almighty. There's so much hope in that. There's so much trust in that. There's so much confidence and so much to be learned, I think, about the simplicity and yet how profound it is to have a relationship with Creator God through Jesus Christ. Now, I hope today that might be helpful to you. Perhaps you're feeling distant from God. Maybe you feel very close. But I hope just thinking about the fact that we can be as close to God as being right in his presence will be help and encouragement, maybe dispel some fears, and make this a really excellent day for you. Nice to be with you. This is Pastor Bill. God bless you.